order the Board of Trustees meeting for February 19th, 2019. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everyone. At least the rain and ice is supposed to come tonight. It's supposed to start at about 3 in the morning, so we don't have to rush out of here quite as much as we did last time. I would ask if everyone would make sure their cell phones are either off or on silent. First order of business, roll call, please.
Trustee Chamberlain. Here. Trustee Ford. Here. Trustee Goldstein. Trustee Weaver.
Here.
Trustee Hollander.
Here.
Trustee Jamerson.
Here.
President Norris.
Here. We have a quorum. Approval of minutes, we haven't received the minutes yet. So we'll just have to move past that one. Village ecologist is not here this evening. Treasurer's report. Bob?
The treasurer's report for this month is the 12-month recap, the pre-audit recap.
Bob, you need to pull it a little closer to you. You're not the most sensitive in the world.
Okay. Again, you have a memo that's dated February 14th. I don't want to reread the whole memo, but just to recap again, this is the 12-month results, unaudited, but should fairly closely resemble the end of the year picture. General fund revenues for the year were up just slightly from last year. That's the good news. The increase was just over $2,000. The year-over-year increase in sales tax was fairly significant. The excise taxes did show a fairly significant drop also. Building department revenues stayed strong, dropped a little bit, but certainly higher than the prior to the recent activity. We talked about a little bit about the major sales tax generator that left during the year. We put a chart in, basically page 2 is a line chart, kind of shows the 2-year, 3-year history of how the sales tax, and again, this is combined home rule and non-home rule, transpires over a period of 12 months. As you can see, the purple line, or the line with the X data points, was doing fairly well up until about September. And again, there's a lag in the way we get the cash. This is the cash basis when we actually get the cash from the Department of Revenue versus when sales were generated. So those sales are typically a couple of months prior to this. So you can see September was probably the last month that we got this revenue, and then it dropped off after that. So obviously in the future, this is a continuing type of thing that we need to be concerned about. Again, the source of revenue, this should continue into the future. The main source of revenue to the general fund, which is the main operating fund of the village, certainly are the sales taxes, followed by the property tax levy and utility taxes. From the standpoint of the two enterprise funds, water and sewer, water fund revenues were up about 15%. Due to both the increase in the water rate and also seasonal weather factors with summer prior summer last year. The sewer fund was up also, but not probably due to the increased replacement reserve contributions and tap-on fees. We saw some additional tap-on fees for the year from the building. On the operating expenditure side, the next chart shows that there were typically increases in all of the funds. Water and sewer doesn't show a linear million. So there is a surplus generated that will be generated in the general fund for the year. And due to the drop in sales tax that expected, the surplus probably will substantially be decreased. Generally, in the general fund, the overall lands and general increases, major increases were due to settlement of the contract at one-time retro payments in the police department. And then there were some capital expenditures, primarily for road maintenance. Obviously, the other personnel items went up in non-police and police. In water, expenses were lower, total expenses, but that's due to a major construction project in 2017 that was not repeated in 2018. Purchased water from Northbrook rose $90,000 again with their water rate increases that occurred during the year. Sewer fund, however, did have a construction project, so their expenditures were up just under $200,000. Again, if you break it down by department, and we go to the major, it's basically four operating departments. Police, obviously, the biggest chunk of the village by itself, followed by the administrative, which are both, again, general fund, operating, and water and sewer. I'm going to add a couple of things this time for the 6 and 12 month. Basically, page 4 of this memo, we show that sort of the trends, how personnel costs in administrative personnel costs have gone for the past 10 years or so. They've been fairly stable, again, primarily because this number is relatively small. If you have changes over the year, from year to year, things that happen in personnel over time, that can change who you are quite a bit. But they have been relatively stable for the past 10 years, which is a fairly significant thing. Again, this bar chart is non-police, there are no police operating costs, and that is just the non-police selling costs. And then also, from the standpoint of the general fund, next to the last chart, shows the revenue expenses, excluding the major infrastructure, meaning buildings, both police and this building, show a somewhat increasing revenue picture over the past 10 years. And again, sort of a wave up and down of expenditures. But because, again, this is a relatively small budget, when you have other capital expenditures that occur during the year that don't reoccur, what would be a couple $100,000, $200,000, doesn't move that back and forth. But again, you haven't seen a lot of personnel changes in both police and in administrative, so you don't have that sort of bell curve, that sort of curve that keeps going out every year because you're adding people and their salaries going up. Any questions? A more complete and audited picture will occur after we see the audit in a few months.
Question. Can you break out the motor fuel tax revenue?
No. The motor fuel tax revenue has been pretty consistent.
Do you know what it is though? I mean, can you break that number out so that I know what it is?
In the monthly reports, I give that information in the monthly report.
So what category is it in on the major revenues?
It's not, we don't consider that a major revenue. You get about $8,000 to $9,000 a month.
I was going to say, it's about 70
And then
to 90
the-
a year.
70 to 90,000.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you're right. It's $6,000 to $7,000.
And
And that, we wouldn't consider that a major revenue, so that's why it's not in here. And in fact, your revenue is fairly consistent because it's based on the per capita, and that's been almost stable for the last 4 or 5 years from the state. And your expenditures typically are zero until Pat saves up some money and then he puts it in for a couple hundred, $300,000.
At a meeting with the legislative breakfast with Lake County Municipal League, the Lake County delegation indicated they thought there would be an increase in the motor fuel tax. But then again, they also thought that the bill that's currently pending, which would increase our share of the local government distributing fund back up to 10, would also pass. I would believe both when we see the revenue.
You know, I would just throw in that the motor fuel tax revenue has to be recorded in a separate fund. So it shouldn't appear as part of general or water or sewer. It has to be accounted for in a separate fund.
In fact, you also, I think, will find that just after you do IMLA, is they're actually increasing their estimates on what all the funds will be delivered for next year.
So would that likewise mean that the revenue from the motor fuel tax is not in the gross revenue of the village? Number, the
It's-
4 point whatever number?
That's correct. Those are not part of any of this analysis today. Tonight.
Is there anything else that's minor, that's not part of that?
Any of the SSAs are not in, none of the SSAs are here. But you only, that's all the other funds you can't really, you have capital project funds that are separate, but those are funded from general fund and you're familiar with those because we don't use a capital project fund unless you've got a fairly big capital project.
This report is a look at the operating funds, and when it comes time to do fund accounting, then the motor fuel tax is looked at as a separate.
Right.
Are there any other questions for Bob? All right then, thank you. Moving on, the engineer is in Northfield tonight. Director of Community Services report.
The last of the business license inspections passed, Kobe about crack bit there. I think it was issued for court, which will be tomorrow. It's dismissed now. They finally passed the inspection and going on a kind of a language barrier in the middle of it. So that's the last one. Everybody else has passed and received their license in the mail. And that's all I have.
Okay, some of you may have noticed that somebody was trying to put a drive-through in Shadow earlier this week, but apparently that's not going to disrupt their business. It's relatively minor damage on the outside. A car slid in the snow on Monday and went up into part of the facade. I think they thought that it was takeout on the liquor sooner than we
No structural damage, no electrical damage. Damage to the
And
side.
no, we certified insurance. Zoning Board of Appeals did not meet. I think it was a plan commission meeting, and somebody wanted to report on that. How it's slow.
We've continued the hearing on the proposal for senior group homes on March 14. Remember, we were at the planning commission. One of you wasn't. I think he was here. You weren't there. Anyway, will be on March 14th. We pushed it back so that everyone on the applicant side will be able to attend and make their continue their presentation. And we'll send notices out to the surrounding property owners, advising them that they continue date to March 14th.
I would encourage everyone who wasn't there to take a look at the video because a number of residents showed up and expressed their opinions. I don't want to characterize what was said in any manner, but I would recommend that you look at the video.
Is the video of that one on the website?
Yes. Okay, police report.
I just had what's in my activity report.
Any questions for the chief? Hearing none, village attorney's report.
It's all on the agenda.
Okay, then moving on to information items and comments. One, we're just on the cusp of probably going public on the Engage River Woods. I sent around to those of you who are not full admin a screen snapshot that I hope will give you a good feel for what's there. I think the questions are very fairly laid out and will probably, or should give us a pretty good return to what the general population is thinking. Again, I would like to compliment those who were on the committee. I think did a lot of work and a lot of mind and head butting to try and make sure we got good, straightforward questions. Biggest thing right now is I have to do a video and welcoming people to the site, and that's a lot harder to do than you might think if you're not a professional at it. You all know I can talk, so that's not the problem. But trying to make it sound reasonable on a video is not necessarily so easy to do. I talked with our representative at the Illinois Department of Natural Resources about our grant. One, we haven't heard the official contact from them. We still have 2 weeks to get that. We are not obligated to do anything until we actually sign the note and paperwork, which she said will probably be in mid-April. So we do have time to try to piece this thing together. It sounded they're fairly willing to allow us to be flexible. I don't have that in writing, and obviously that's subject to interpretation. But it sounds as long as the project in essence goes forward, we can drop out various parts if need be. And as long as there's some sort of open space that's created along the general type of line and volume that we talked about, it sounds like it would be no problem with the grant. Again, I don't have that in writing, so we can take it for what it's worth. But that was the impression that I got from trying to stay with them. And I will continue to communicate because that was also something that was agreed on, that as long as we keep them advised of where we're at, we should be okay. Henry?
Am I correct in saying that the board needs to make a decision by April 1st on this? Within 5 weeks?
We probably have a little more time than that, but that's a pretty good way to look at a timeline. You thinking we need to be deciding whether we're going to go forward. We can again change elements and things, but we need to decide whether we're doing something or nothing.
And I would recommend that we have some type of meeting longer or discussion time or something within this format to discuss that before April 1st.
Agreed. I think a public forum on that would be a very good idea. We'll look for some time in late March or early April.
I was looking, the public forum was fine, but I was more looking for time for the board itself to be able to interact with each other and discuss it. Not excluding the
I do think
public,
we
but
obviously need to be able to talk publicly again, but if the board wishes to have a special meeting, is that in essence what you're asking for?
I'm not sure that the board is this could be just my feeling, but I don't know that we have come to any at least reasonable agreement in any way regarding this based on our last discussion. And I would like to have the opportunity to have that explored a little bit further by everybody on the board.
I agree with you, Henry. I think everybody has an open mind. It's what we can probably do, and I think it's appropriate. My only question is whether we will be getting enough to you ahead of regular meetings, or if you'd like to have a special meeting. I'm certainly willing to have special meetings, whatever, in addition to giving you information, but I'm not sure.
I would like to have had something before we're required to sign it or not sign it.
Without question. Without question, that would be, it would be clearly stated that that was the purpose.
So that would be good to have basically a workshop, right? We need a whole meeting after the monuments results are in. Yes.
Yes. I think we.
I was just gonna say, I think it makes more sense to have that discussion actually after we have the results from minors.
Well, certainly, I think the mind mixer will tell us whether people want nothing here, because that's the very first question we ask. Do you want us to leave it totally alone, or do you want us to do something? And then we try to find out how much they want.
Bill, the members are gonna have very little time.
I don't argue that, but I think once we see some of the responses, we'll have a better feeling. But I will try to get you as much information as we can. We'll try to schedule something in there if that's what you would like. I have no problem doing it. I'm just trying to make sure I'm scheduling what you're asking for. You think you have a workshop in there, or are you talking about a meeting where we might be willing to vote, or just what we're...
No, the workshop is fine, but I agree that we need more information, and once we have all the information we think we're going to get prior to when it has to be signed, is when we should at least have an opportunity to talk among ourselves about this, not privately, but at least a little bit more informal.
No, our workshop, of course, has to be public meetings.
Yes,
and
I understand.
Yes.
Similar to the financial one that we did a month and a half ago. So.
Yes, I think that's fine. Are there any other?
Yes.
Yes, sure.
So, once again, I think we need to be mindful about time, so I think what we need to do is make a schedule and work it backwards. So in other words, if we are going to have a meeting where we're going to discuss this, whether it be a workshop or whether it be a dedicated board meeting or whatever, we set that date. And the committee talked about leaving the Engage Redford Woods tool open a specified period of time. And so that needs to be worked in there too. But I think what we need to do is set a schedule in advance, because otherwise we will find ourselves in the position of, oh wait, let's just add that one more voice, let's add that one more opportunity. I think we need to have a specified schedule in advance.
I agree, and I will be talking, I hope, with you tomorrow, and are you going to be available, I assume? Well, to talk about getting this all scheduled and setting up the timelines, et cetera.
If that's what it takes, then I will make myself
Well,
available.
and I was going to ask Eric the same question. Eric, are you going to be available by phone tomorrow to talk about the scheduling on all of this?
Depends on the time.
Morning or
But it
afternoon?
could be available, it's a matter of what time.
Okay.
Is the drop dead date here April 11th?
Say again.
The drop dead date, when we have to let them know something, is that
I
April
don't,
11th?
they
What's April
did
11th?
not give me a drop dead date. I've tried to find that out, and they're telling me it would be sometime in April we would have to be signing. But if we never sign anything, it's certainly not going to do until the board says yes, do something.
If that's so, that's every board meeting between now and mid-April. So, and then you've got to squeeze in the release of the questionnaire, time for return of the questionnaire, special board meeting decision. So that's 3 weeks.
There's no question, we've got to be
Yeah.
moving, that's why Cheryl brought that up, and I was
Okay, I'm just
I
wondering
really
if I
tried
can
to
just
take
along the
advantage
same
of
lines.
having 2 of the 3 people here this evening to make sure I can reach them. So, I'll send out some dates for mid to late March, I'm trying to get the workshop. We should have mine this by then, might be better right off the home.
Yes.
Excuse me, could be my stuff for
Could I just have an understanding as to how the community is going to know that the mind mixer is up and that this survey is going
Okay, we're going to be, we even got something today to be talking about media campaign, whether it's Facebook, using the Blackboard Connect. It's going to be on the website, et cetera. We will send out a card to everybody with the address, et cetera. So virtually anything we can think of, we'll be trying to reach people. There will be a computer, I hope, at the wine and cheese where they can
There we
give us
go.
something that they can actually go on and fill it out there if they want to. Plus, we'll have to point out to them. That's all we need to do.
Okay, and then I just have one more question, because it looks like this questionnaire is final, and I just saw it today for the,
Mike, we could make changes, but I will be straightforward that if you got a good one, we'll do it, but I think we're pretty
I
close to
think,
being there.
I think that it's gotten much better. I feel like it's very, very neutral now, much more neutral.
The committee really worked trying to, we had voices on all sides.
But the one thing that I think is missing
Okay.
it is a question or a box which indicates whether or not the respondent is a member of the RPC. I think it's a key element because if there's a particular group that politics to get an inordinate number of responses, then it's going to be a skewed survey. And I think we need to know who is responding, because we have that, we have that organization, which obviously has position, and obviously they're entitled to position, and we should honor their position because they are our constituents. But we need to know whether it's disproportionate or not.
So people have asked me a couple of times if we can have some way of identifying people, identify their membership in organizations. And my response is that I think that is a problem with the First Amendment. I think that asking for citizens to announce who they're affiliated with has the price of participating in a survey. And if you want to say that this is purely voluntary, needed to be disclosed, but I just think it's something to be mindful about. That.
Well, Mike, I would ask, are there other groups that we should also be asking? Should I ask if they live on Greenbrier, because those people
Or
seem to
maybe
have.
have an address. I don't
Oh,
know.
we will get addresses, that we will have, Mike, but it's just the affiliation that I'm very concerned about. I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, I just think that we would be naive to think that the Rivers Preservation Council is not going to ask all of their members to make sure that they respond to this email to set forth their position. I think we, as a group, would be completely naive to think that's not going to happen. And as a result, I think unless somebody else is trying to get other members of the community to answer, which I don't know that any other group is particularly trying to get other members of the community to answer this question. I think that it's going to be skewed, and we need to figure out a way to recognize that.
I agree with what you're saying, but I also think it's our job to get the residents across all of our neighborhoods or sections to become engaged in FEMA service. So I think it behooves us as a group, I think it behooves the village to make an issue out of this with everyone, because I agree with you, the RPC will mobilize its members because it sees that that's a project that it would like to have happen. And if others in our community sit back and don't respond, then, what do? That's like voting. That's like voting. So I think it is our job to talk it up and make sure that everybody responds, as many people as possible respond from various sections of the village.
Sure.
So I agree with Trustee Ford. It's our responsibility to make sure that as many people as possible are informed and as many people as possible participate. I do think that assuming that a particular individual is going to respond in a particular way because they belong to a group is a bias in and of itself. That I don't think is fair. I've talked with several RPC members, all having completely differing points of view. And while I would anticipate that the RPC will mobilize its members to engage, and I think they should, I think they can all think for themselves. And each one of these is a resident with a right to have their voices heard, as is every other resident of our village.
It's okay. I'll cut this short right now. I'm not going to do it unless there's a vote from this board to overrule it. Okay, thank you. Moving forward, then, actually, since I just was rather dictatorial, let me ask to make sure there are no more questions. I don't need to cut everybody off on that. That particular topic, we beat to death, and that's the decision of the mayor.
I have one other question.
Oh, yes, Mike.
Would it be possible to have some kind of electronic sign at the border of the village on Deerfield Road, which basically tells people, please respond to this survey?
Of course it is, we have to bring a sign.
I think we should consider doing that.
I have no
Please
problem.
respond by such and such a date with the
Like that.
address.
I'm seeing a lot of high heads nodding up and down, so I think it's all
Put a sign on the road, Deerfield Road, saying, survey out.
What would prevent a non-resident?
Oh, we'll know, but that's part of the language, or they will know whether they're residents or not.
So the issue with that is that we would probably have to get the home to approve putting that sign in.
We'll talk to them, like, we have to check and make sure whether it's on their right of way or
We can
not.
put it on.
Yeah. So if we
You
do,
can put it on ours, I can probably talk to the president of the Thorngate homeowners, maybe we can put it on their side. If I can figure out who it was, who's my president?
so I do think
You don't have no trouble with the buttons.
Just push down.
Maybe we'll push it. There you go.
If we have a sign like that, I would like it to be mobile and move it to various parts of the village, because some people only are in one section of the village most of the time. And so I just wanted to be,
I think that's fair. I think probably 90% of the village goes by Saunders and Deerfield, but I still agree that I think the idea of putting it in various places, make sure that we expose as many people with it as possible. So I'll be happy to do that. So it's a very good idea, Mike. Any more good ideas? We don't want any bad ones, just good ones. Okay. March 5th meeting, J.P. Morgan will have a representative here to explain our investment position and where we're at. That's something that Trustee Ford has gotten to be kind of an annual thing for us, so kudos to her. I think this will be good. And then finally, it's come to my attention that some people are sending out emails to everybody with policy questions and comments. Because of the Open Meetings Act, people can't respond to that, etc. So please try to keep emails either directed just to me, and I can figure out if there are ways to get it out, or try to restrict it to things that are not necessarily the policy issues. While I'd love to be able to let everybody debate issues out on the internet with the email, the wise people with the Open Meetings Act say no, that constitutes a violation of the Open Meetings Act. So you're looking, no, you're not guilty necessarily.
I wasn't going to suggest I was. I just was going to ask the question. Two trustees can still have a conversation via email.
Yes,
Just when you send a communication to everybody, it's still okay as long as people don't respond.
Or if you send it to 2 trustees and me, or 3 trustees. But yes, you two can always exchange information.
Just so I'm clear, I can't send an email to all the trustees even if nobody responds to me.
No, you can. The
You
post
can't reply to all.
You should say, if they're not responsive.
You can't have communication with more than 2 board
Right,
members.
but I'm also trying to make it where somebody who sends the email out first doesn't necessarily get to usurp the discussion because nobody gets to reply to them either. That's not exactly right either, so.
Well, I didn't say it wasn't right or wrong. I didn't say it wasn't right or wrong, I'm just saying it doesn't violate the meetings.
It's not very necessary.
The point is 2 things. The point is to be aware that a series of email exchanges can collectively constitute a conversation.
Okay.
And that's where people get in trouble. You send an email, and someone else sends an email, 3 hours later, you send an email, and you had a meeting or not. It starts to get a little ambiguous because we normally think of a meeting as a simultaneous event, but there have been some other states where this issue's come up, and I don't know if it's come up in exactly this form, but the idea is if it's tantamount to a meeting, if it's like having a meeting, maybe it's a meeting. So just be cautious that when you send things out and people respond, that you're not inserting too many people at one time. That was my first comment. My second comment, does that help?
Yeah, I mean, I don't do that in the first place, but I just was curious to whether sure we'll do something in the future.
The second thing, because we've had a lot of heightened interest over the application for the senior group home, I have been starting to consider what sort of, what we might call ex parte communications are appropriate. And again, there's a lot of thought on this that we haven't really had to confront before. I guess I would say my best advice is everyone on the planning commission and eventually everyone on the board is a decision maker in this. And since the hearing is still open, since there's more evidence to be presented, the best commentary on it is to try and avoid getting substantive discussions with people outside of the hearing process while the hearing is open. The idea is that all of us should hear the testimony and the evidence at the same time, rather than some people hear things that other people haven't heard that would cause them to adopt a point of view. The idea is to keep an open mind, to be able to hear the evidence when it's presented. I know that I suspect there will be a lot of people trying to get to hear various trustees and to talk to you about this. And so I'm mentioning this as well because you're, as a public official, your duty is to try and keep an open mind and be ready to hear the evidence when it's presented rather than piecemeal from various sources, since we have a hearing going on.
And let me just remind everybody that we're supposed to go and take the OMA course that's online once a year, as I recall. Cheryl and I learned that when we went to the meeting a couple of years ago. Yeah, we'll send you a link to it. So, we can't send it to all. It's about that money sometimes, yes, sure.
If we're finished with this topic, the wine and cheese has a time here. I thought it just mentioned.
Okay. Wine and cheese on the 28th, show up or else. Oh, no, that's...
Okay, that's fine too.
I have invited virtually every one of our representatives and senators, et cetera, as well. So far, nobody's going to be able to make it. I'll let you decide whether that's a plus or a minus. It should be a very good time. Daphne and Cheryl have both put a lot of work into this, and I think it'll be a good opportunity for members of the community to get to know each other, and some of those people from this corner and people from that corner might actually talk to each other once in a while without being in an argument over something, and that's why they don't like it right there. But I think it should be very good, Cheryl.
I believe everyone has gotten an email invitation. We have signs up. Village Voice is going out. Emails have gone out via Black.
That's just telling you you've talked over 3 minutes, so.
No, I did not get my full 3 minutes. Facebook, it's on the website, and, sign.
Signs, and I think something else, but I can't, it's not popping in my head. Maybe, Daphne, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I sent an email out to all the trustees. Thank you, trustee Hollander and Goldstein, for responding. So the rest of you, we would love to know who can come and who we're expecting, because we have a few positions we're trying to man for community engagement. So can you let me know after the meeting or via email? That would be great. And we've also been posting signs in local businesses. And anyone in the village that you feel want to email the flyer to or personally invite, we've been doing that too. So that would be great. And I've actually, when I sent it through Blackboard Connect, I actually got 3 responses from people that said this looks great or I'm coming. So that was encouraging.
In fact, I'm glad you mentioned it. We're having a special Village Voice come out that talks about Engaged Riverwoods, it talks about the wine and cheese, and it talks about the continued plan commission hearings, since there was some question about whether there was adequate notice or not. So we will make sure that we're as transparent as we can possibly be on this. Okay.
Can I ask about
Yes,
parking?
please.
Parking at the party? Have you made any special arrangements or anything in case this lot gets built?
Our special arrangements are Chief Dino.
That was.
He's gonna be doing valet.
So pick us up
From the police department.
and then you drive
Who
over.
makes the big bucks?
First, 3 seconds just arrived yesterday. Had to do more with expected crowd for the group home, but also used for next door. One side is auxiliary parking to the north of the narrow point of Deadaway, and then a sign for the pad. These are sandwich board, A-frame mobile signs. So there's 3 of them that identify parking for next door.
And Bruce said he would have an officer here, et cetera, if it was going to be overflow or whatever, since we're not sure how many people will be here.
You got the path open too.
Yes, the path is already lighted. I don't know if it's shoveled or not. Probably not. So if you don't get here early, you get to trek down the path.
Better put that in the notes.
But we did realize at the plan commission hearing, gee, we probably should have a sign that says if the lot is full, park next door, and tell the people coming from next door that the north door is open, because some of the people who parked to the north came all the way around, even though the door wasn't locked. Because there was nothing telling them when they're used to coming in the south door. So we may not have gotten it right the first time, but we were learning, so we're trying to get there. Okay, anything else under general comments, discussion? Visitors wishing to address the board? Okay. Oh, there is one. Yes, sir.
Just a couple of questions.
Please,
My name is
please. Okay.
Russ Romanelli. I had a few questions about the survey pertaining to the property here. You answered most of them in the discussion that just ensued, but I did still have a couple. A couple of meetings ago, in a discussion about revisiting the wording of some of the questions and what should be in there and not, I recall what I think was a somewhat positive opinion on including costs of this work in there. Will that be in there? Good,
Yes.
thank you. And I thought I heard some positive emotions about the final iteration of the questions, but I would ask Trustee Goldstein, a couple of meetings ago, you expressed some concern over the objectivity, let's say, of the questions and the way they were phrased. With the final iteration, has that opinion changed any?
I think our committee has worked hard to get the wording right. And I am content with the draft that we have currently.
Good, that's great to hear. Thank you. That's
We
all I have.
really did work hard to try to make sure, we even argued about desirable versus valuable. Okay, so we got down into the weeds a whole lot, trying to make sure we weren't valuing any of the questions or answers. Okay, any other visitors wishing to? Yes.
David Schember, RBC President. Just to add to the Village Voice, this Village Voice, the special February edition will have an article on the election as well. So, just
Yes, David, thank you for reminding me about that, because we're trying to make sure everybody gets out and vote, because it's such a highly contested election here in the village. Actually, we are trying to get people to get out and vote.
What's the voting day?
April 2nd, I believe.
Explain why it is.
I am just going there, Cheryl. The reason we actually do want people to vote, and it is hard getting people to do it when it's uncontested, the number of people who vote in the election determines how many signatures you would have to have for someone to run as a candidate for any office. And when we have very low turnout, that means you have somebody run for office on as few as 5 signatures. And while we certainly want it to be open, we would like the bar to be a little higher than you and your family, because I know people that have at least 5 voters living here. So and we don't need it to be exclusive, but certainly if you can't get more than 5 signatures, then you're probably not going to be able to win anyway. So that, and just frankly, they should go out and vote anyway. There'll be other items on the ballot that would be important as well. But I think it is important to try and get numbers out. Okay, any other visitors wishing to address the board? We're running out of visitors. Okay, approval of bills. Do I have a motion for approval of bills?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. I know, Rick, you caught one, but we seem to have a copy of one in there that's on a double check. Were there any others?
I had a duplicate too, but I wrote on it, so.
Okay. Did you check against the bills, the checks themselves, whether it was a double on the check?
I didn't look on the.
Okay, well, if you marked it, we'll double check.
I marked it though, so
Okay.
I said don't pay, because it's a duplicate.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Chamberlain?
Aye.
Trustee Ford?
Aye.
Trustee Goldstein? Trustee Haber?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the action items on the agenda. The first item, the Des Moines River Watershed Resolution. We will continue that and have someone from the Des Moines River Watershed come in, also to give everyone an opportunity to look at the plan, because it's a rather large document. So even if we were trying to figure out what was there and how it might affect us, I don't think we necessarily had a sufficient opportunity to look. And I think it would be best if the board could at least question somebody who helped draft it as to the impact on the village. Item B is review and possible approval of professional services agreement with SFR Audit Solutions. Bob, I think this is yours. If you would go ahead, please.
Thank you. We, given the previously discussed expectation of lower sales tax revenue, we thought it would be appropriate to review the different types of fees and taxes that we impose and to get a handle on whether or not we're being fairly charged to all of those people who are subject to those. There's a firm out there called SFR Audit Solutions. They've been in business for about 14 years in this area. It's a local firm whose primary business is to go into serve municipal clients and audit basically all of these revenues that they may impose. And what the audit simply stated, and we have a representative here from SFR, Tom Fagan, is basically they go in and for the village in particular, the ones that we will be looking at, we would like to look at, would be our utility taxes and our cable franchise fees and our telecom fees, along with the sales tax generators that are within the village. And what they do is they have software and experience in auditing, getting a handle on what we charge, how we charge it, and handle on all of the residents and businesses within the corporate limits of the village. And then take that data and compare it to the returns, the data that the utility companies and telecom companies have from the standpoint of what they believe, the companies believe, to be the properly charged residents and businesses within the village. They compare those two address lists and looking for any discrepancies. And the discrepancies would be businesses and residences that are within the village that are not being charged a municipal tax for the village of Riverwoods. they may even not be charged any municipal tax, or they may be charged tax within another municipality incorrectly. Given that Village of Riverwoods has a shared zip code with Deerfield and other surrounding areas, we thought it would be appropriate to bring them in to utilize their services to ensure that we're reaping everything that we should be reaping within the village. And basically, they work on a contingency basis. And what their contingent agreement was, subject to agreement, it typically is they will, if they find discrepancies, if they find taxpayers that should have been in, that weren't, they will seek to go back 6 months and get the revenues from them, through the utility companies. They don't go, they're not going to the individual taxpayer, they're going to the utility companies. And we capture taxes that should have been in the village and that were paid to the village during that time frame. If they find that and recover that revenue, they seek to take a portion of that, and we'll talk about that a little bit, and give us the rest. And if they find these residents' addresses, that type of thing, businesses, they also, part of this agreement is they want to share in the prospective revenues going forward for a period of 36 months. And they do that by basically projecting how much, based on historic